Marlowe Bennett had always been invisible. Not in a supernatural way, not in any way that made him interesting or mysterious, just in the quiet, crushing way that some kids are invisible in high school. The kind where teachers forget to call your name during attendance, where hallways part around you not out of respect but out of indifference, where lunch tables somehow never have room even when they are half empty. Marlo was 15, skinny, wore glasses held together with a piece of tape on the left hinge, and spoke so rarely that most of his classmates genuinely could not tell you what his voice sounded like. That was the joke. That was the whole humiliating, stupid joke that had somehow become the signature. Cruelty of Jefferson High's junior class. Someone, no one even remembered who, had started a rumor that Marlowe Bennett was mute. Not because he had a condition, not because anything was wrong with him medically, just because he was quiet, just because he moved through the world like he was trying not to take up space. And so the joke lived and breathed and grew, and kids would walk past him in the hallway and whisper, "Has anyone ever actually heard him talk?" And then laugh like it was the funniest thing in the world. And Marlo would keep walking, eyes forward, jaw tight, because what was the point of fighting a fire you did not know how to put out? His mother knew something was wrong. Mothers always do. She would sit across from him at dinner and watch the way he pushed food around his plate, and she would ask questions, soft and careful. And Marlo would say, "It's fine, Mom, everything's fine." And she would let it go because she trusted him, and trusting your child sometimes means letting them carry things until they are ready to set them down. The music teacher at Jefferson High was a woman named Mrs. Elaine Cross, and she was one of those rare educators who paid attention not to the loudest students but to the quietest ones, because she understood that silence was not always peace. It was sometimes the loudest cry for help you would ever hear if you knew how to listen. She had noticed Marlo for weeks, noticed the way he lingered near the music room door after school, never coming in, never walking away, just hovering at the edge like someone standing outside a warm house in the cold, wanting to knock but not believing they would be welcome. One Tuesday afternoon, she left the door open and sat at the piano and began to play, and she did not look toward the hallway, and she did not call out to him, she just played. And after about 4 minutes, she heard the softest sound, a voice, low and uncertain at first, then steadier, then fuller, humming along to the melody she was playing, finding the notes like someone remembering a language they thought they had forgotten. She kept playing. She did not turn around. She did not want to startle whatever fragile, brave thing had just walked into the room. She played for another 10 minutes, and the voice behind her grew stronger with every passing bar, and by the end of it, she was the one with tears in her eyes. She turned around slowly, and Marlo was standing just inside the doorway, cheeks flushed, looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. And she smiled at him and said, "That was beautiful. Will you come back tomorrow?" He came back. He came back every day for 3 weeks. Mrs. Cross discovered that Marlowe Bennett had a voice that could stop a room, a rich, aching, honest baritone that belonged to someone twice his age, someone who had lived and lost and found their way back. She asked him if he would sing at the spring assembly. He said no. She asked again the following week. He said maybe. The week after that, he said yes, and then spent 4 nights barely sleeping. The day of the assembly, the gymnasium was packed with every student who had ever whispered that stupid joke. Every kid who had looked through him like he was made of glass. Every person who had decided without asking that Marlowe Bennett had nothing worth hearing. He walked onto that stage, and the room was already starting to murmur with confusion, because no one knew who he was. Not really. And then the music began, and he opened his mouth, and the gymnasium went silent in a way. It had never gone silent before. Not the silence of boredom, the silence of being completely helplessly moved. He sang for 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and when he finished, the room did not applaud immediately. There was a pause. That rare and sacred pause that only happens when something real has just occurred. And then the sound that followed was deafening. Marlowe Bennett stood at the center of that stage with tears running down his face. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming, terrifying, liberating feeling of finally being heard. Invisibility, it turned out, had always been a choice other people made for him. And now at last he had made a different one. If this story moved you, please show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Kindness Corner Stories. where every story is a reminder that the quietest voices often carry the most powerful truths.